Despite the fact the headline came from a news website that is rife with inaccuracies and flat-out lies, it still caught our attention. It says, Putin is well aware of threats U.S. dictatorship poses to entire world. U.S. dictatorship. The website is Pravda, the mouthpiece of the Russian government and what might be the least trusted source for news the globe has ever known, leading us right into this moment of clarity on the dictator and his ever-changing scope of the planet. Welcome back to MidPoint. Author and columnist Todd Wood, who is constantly in Europe and knows what's happening on the ground there as well. Todd, always good to see you again, my friend.
Hey, Ed, thanks for having me back in so short a time. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. Let's discuss what's happening in Ukraine right now, because there seems to be a shift there right now and a belief perhaps that Vladimir Putin may have bit off a little bit more than he can chew. He is facing a very critical decision. The rebels want military help. He has military at the border right now. There are those who say that if he did send in that military, he would clean out the Ukrainian rebels without any problem whatsoever. So then, what would be the thinking process and to why he might be hesitating?
Ed, I think I'm having problems here. Can you?
Tell you what we're going to do. Gentlemen, why don't we do this? We're having a problem. Let me know if we are able to get Todd through, because I know he's having a problem hearing us. Guys, let me know if we have to, because if we have to, okay, it's the internet. Todd, let's try again. Can you hear me now?
I can, Ed, yes.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. With the way the internet runs and the way technology is, I like to make sure that everything's working first before we proceed. I had asked about Putin and Ukraine right now. He has troops massed on the border. He is being asked for help to see if he can come in and clean out Ukraine. I mean, if you think about it here, the rebels are asking for military help. He's not moving, though. There's a feeling maybe that he may have bitten off more than he can chew. What's your take?
I think Putin is very adept at working the situation to his advantage. And I've said before, if he does not need to go into Ukraine, he will not do so. And I think he can get what he wants without doing so. However, the recent events may have thrown a wrench into that plan, and I think he's trying to decide what to do, because you have taken some of the cities have moved more on Donetsk and kind of concentrated their forces there and lost a little of the momentum. So it'll be interesting to watch. What he wants to do is destabilize Ukraine, and I think he's achieved that goal. I don't think he wants to. I don't think he can afford it. His economy can't afford it, and he won't if he doesn't have to.
If you destabilize Ukraine, though, doesn't he need to put it back together again for his dreams of economic supremacy in Europe to take hold?
I think he's written off Ukraine from a perspective of being part of his Eurasian Economic Union. I think he realizes the West is going to go with the EU. So he's going to make it as difficult as possible to show other, former Soviet republics, Moldova, Transnistria, other areas, that you can't do the same thing and you need to join Russia, and it will not work out in the long run. I mean, every country that stands up to the Kremlin has been torn apart, really, in a short period of time, and I think this is another case. He will get what he wants in the East. He will, maintain the access to the industry there through the separatists. At least he hopes he will.
Is there a thinking process that we need to pay, and again, I'm going to speculate here, a little less attention to what he is doing in Ukraine and pay more attention to what Russia is doing right now in perhaps offering aid to the various Iraqi forms of government?
I completely agree with you there. I mean, Putin is a player on the world stage, and the game right now in the world is not Ukraine. It's in the Middle East, obviously. And look at what he's done. He's very definitely gone into Iraq, provided them aircraft, pilots, training, probably further weapons. And if he can come in and make friends with that government and establish a Russian foothold in our power vacuum, he will do so very quickly, which he has done.
I know that you travel throughout Europe and you have a great handle on what happens in a lot of the European areas and a lot of the capitals there, certainly the Middle East, and many things that are happening there. So I want to spin, if we can here for a moment, to what is happening in the Middle East, because what is happening with Iraq still is a little bit of a question to Americans right now. There seems to be another line of thinking, again, that maybe the best way to take Iraq and fix it is to split this country into three parts: Kurdish, Shia, and Sunni. I know you've spent a lot of time there. You hear what a lot of the people on the ground are saying in Europe right now. It just seems to me that this would be, and I'll be very frank, the absolute dumbest thing that perhaps people could possibly do. And I am told that while I'm asking the question, we lost Todd. So what we're going to do is we'll try to get him back for a couple of minutes. We have a few minutes left in this segment. But here is what is being talked about right now. The big question is with regard to Iraq and splitting it in three. Let's go back, if you will, give you a little history. In 2006, Joe Biden, who was then a U.S. Senator, and he was not the U.S. President, Joe Biden is the guy who said it was time to split Iraq into three parts, the Kurdish, the Shia, and the Sunni. So, Todd, I bring you back in now to the conversation and ask you, this whole idea, it's several years old, but would that not be simply the worst thing that could happen to split this country into three?
I think that we have given up the ghost there and we no longer have a choice. And the basic theory is correct that the three different ethnic groups will not want to be together. And we've seen, America try to do that over the last 10 years in Iraq. However, it is not in our best interest, in the United States' best interest, to allow the Iraqi oil fields to fall into Iranian hands, which is what would happen if the Shia are allowed to be on their own and they control most of the oil in Iraq. So that's a very bad thing for America. For Iraq, it probably would be best if they split up.
We're saying here in America, we talk a lot about how Americans are looking at things. But again, with your experience and knowledge, as you look at how America is perhaps thinking about getting involved in Iraq, what is the rest of the world saying? Are they really giving us any credence for perhaps doing something right? Do they see us as being pretty much bumbling at this point and not being fully aware of what's happening in that part of the world?
I think you said it very well. They see us as acting like clowns right now. I hear that all the time when I'm in Russia and other places. They wonder, what are you doing? I was in the Kiev airport recently on my way back to the United States, and I saw a guy watching Obama's speech talking about Ukraine and how he's going to help and how America is there for them. And I asked him, I said, what do you think? And he says, oh, it's just words. I mean, he means nothing, and you can't trust him, and he's weak. And that comes straight from someone in the country, in Ukraine, and experiencing the lack of American involvement. So I think at first they are just like, no, it can't really be true. America's going to back away. And then they say, well, maybe they are. And then now they're just taking advantage of it.
Todd, I think they're going to continue to take advantage of it. I apologize for all the technical difficulties we had, my friend. We're all out of time. We'll grab you again another time. We'll find out what's happening in your neck of the woods and also what's happening as far as the European perspective as well. Todd, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Ed. Take care.
All right. It is worth noting again that there is still that discussion as to what America is doing in Europe. We all too often know what's happening here on our own shores, but we rarely hear how the rest of the world sees us. And in this case, it's not very good. We'll take a break, come back on the other side. This is MidPoint. Every day, we question everything.